Hello, and how do you like your coffee? I'm your host, Chris, and today I'm going to begin what I want to call a video podcast, and I'm probably way too close to the camera, but that's okay. Um, the reason for this is I began a podcast. It is called Life Begins at 40, FORTY, spelled out. Um, I tried it. I really don't like it too much because there's not enough interaction between you and your listeners, although I don't have very many at all. I did, however, just begin. Um, but I've thought to myself that since people can't leave comments, they can leave voice messages, but people can't leave comments. And that means you can't interact with each other just as much as you can, as I will not be able to interact with you like I want to. So I figured I'm going to try doing this uh, video podcast wise. Now, the last podcast I tried to upload and would not upload, it was questions that are asked of me as an older person from the younger generation. I've been asked a lot, but I compiled 10 of those questions that are most common, and that is what I'm going to try to answer today, is those 10, not 12, 10 most common questions asked of me. All right, beginning with the questions. First of all, some of these questions I'm going to answer them together because they do kind of interact with each other. Like the first two questions. Do you feel old, and what makes you feel old? When somebody says, do you feel old? It depends on what mood I'm in. One day I could feel very, very young. Next day I could feel old. And another day I might feel just, I haven't thought about whether I feel young or old. And that happens quite most often is, I haven't thought about it. So it must be that I just feel my age. Getting that to the second question, what makes you feel old? The mood I'm usually in when I do feel old is, first of all, the children in your life, whether they're your children or they're your nieces and nephews or children you used to babysit and they have their own children. Things like that make you feel old. It makes you realize that time has passed, especially if they're graduating or they've hit a milestone. They're now off to college. They're having kids of their own, and some even having grandchildren of their own, depending on how old they are and things like that. I'm 51, so I know a lot of people I was like 10 years older than, and you would babysit somebody. Like if you're 16, you're babysitting somebody 6 years old, that you're 10 years older than them. So that's one of the things that can make you feel old. Another thing that can make you feel old is when kids of today, this generation, they're watching a show or a movie that you used to watch, or they're looking at older outfits, and they don't call them retro. Oh no, they call it old. It's just plain old. Okay, that outfit's old. Who did you guys actually wear those outfits? Or this show is old. This movie is old. Sometimes they enjoy them though. Just to let you know. The question I never get asked is what makes you feel younger? So I'm going to answer that anyways because in order for something to make you feel old, something has to make you feel younger. Being active. My college classes sometimes make me feel a little bit young. I got a lot of ladies in the class, in classes that are with me, that are older than me, and I don't feel as old any longer when I hear that they're like 10, 15 years older than me. So I don't feel as old as I would if I'm in a classroom filled with younger people like 20s and 30s. All right, the next question is, how old were you when you first began feeling the pressures of aging? I felt the pressures of aging when I turned about 25 years old. Once you feel that adulthood in you, you know what the next step is, and that's called middle adult. And to most people who are just hitting adulthood, that middle adulthood is old to them. It feels like, okay, if once I hit 40 years old, that's when I'm going to begin to slow down. My health, my health, my health, my health. And I think the pressures of the media and these advertisements, well, you're 40 years old, you better start getting checked for this, that, this, that, this, that. And this pandemic that we're going through right now is not letting up on that pressure much either. So, yeah. And another thing I think would cause me to feel a little bit more conscious about aging is that everybody I've talked to before I was in my 20s is, well, you think 20s old, wait till you hit 30, because time begins to fly past you so fast you don't even see it. You don't even notice until one day you open your eyes and say, oh, wow, I'm this old. I also had in mind that there are many jobs out there who want very young people. So you better get moving. And then you got the ones that life's too short. A whole mess of things can make you feel the pressures of aging. All right, and so the next 3 questions can go together. What do you worry about most? Do you ever worry about your health? And do you ever worry about your future? What do I worry about most, first of all, has a lot to do with health and my future. Plain and simple. That's why I combine these questions. And for those 2 following questions, worrying about my health and future, yes and yes, of course. And I believe most people do. I don't think anybody's all that haphazard about their health. I think they do worry to a certain extent, to where they are aware of their of symptoms of illness. They are aware that if they feel something irregular, they should see a doctor. Some people are a little overly worried about their health. Probably not too healthy to be that way, but it's hard to hit that perfect medium. Well, how much should I worry and how much should I not? Am I eating right? Am I getting enough exercise? Am I hydrated enough? What about my mental health? Things like that. Yes, I do worry about my health. And about my future, yes, definitely worry about my future. I did start college at 45 years old. So I'm worrying about, okay, by the time I graduate, because I'm in college now, and since I'm going part-time, it's going to be a little bit longer than first expected. And so I got more than the 2 years coming. That means I graduate, maybe if I graduate 53, 54 years old, out of here, fly, go fly. Yes, I do worry. I worry, am I going to have a career? Am I going to, once I graduate, am I going to be able to pay off my loans? As far as aging goes, I worry about movement. Am I going to be able to move as well as I do now? Is my eyesight, how will my eyesight fare as I age? What about wrinkles in your graying hair and things like that? Yes, I worry pretty much about that thing, and I think about it a lot, just like many of you do. Like, leave in the comments below how much you think about it. Now, the next one, do you have any regrets? Everybody has some sort of regret, no matter at what degree it might be. I think the only regret, which is very minimal for me, and I will explain that in a few minutes, is not going to college sooner. If you could go back in time and change one thing, only one thing, what would it be? I don't think I would change anything. Like I said, if I went back in time, I might go to college. But then again, the programs that were offered back then are not the same that was offered to me when I turned 45. I would have never thought of taking human services studies or family and child welfare or theology or religious courses because they were not offered in my area. We did not have online studies. Now that we have online studies, I can go to school anywhere in the world if I wanted to. I do keep it in the States because they're the ones that offer the programs that I'm taking. So I'm kind of happy that I did start college at a later age. As far as dropping out of school, and this is why I saved it going back in time, I still would not have stopped myself from quitting school. And I would not advise this to all young people. But the reason I believe that I do not regret this is because I quickly moved on from dropping out of school into get my GED. And so I didn't notice a big time constraint there. It was immediately moved from one step to the next step. So I wasn't out of school for this long period of time. I went straight back into a classroom, but this classroom was studying for GED. So I didn't really miss out on too much there. Now, what would my advice to somebody be? And I know that would be hypocritical of me to say, don't drop out of school. The thing is I live in a state where if you are not taking regents exams and things like that, if you are not in a regents classes and things like that, you only get a GED anyway. You only get a task diploma anyway. So I always tell people, well, I'm going to ask you first of all, how are your grades? Are you in any regency, in any regents? And if they're not, quite frankly, I tell them to think about it. I tell them, I help them look into the rules involved in whether you take your GED or you're doing it in a classroom setting. Do you think you'll be able to finish better in that classroom setting than you would if you did these studies in a different setting as far as taking your task or GED test go? I'm not going to outright say, don't quit school, stay in school. I'm not going to outright say that because I don't know if there's any other states like New York State. If you're not in a Regents program, you only wind up with the general education diploma anyways. A general equivalency diploma, that's what it's called. You only wind up with that anyways. So if you believe, and you always leave it up to the person, don't tell them whether, oh yeah, you should quit, or no, you shouldn't quit. Make them think about it, because that's the best way to go. You're not giving advice. You are, however, helping them get the information or collect the information they need to make that decision. That's how I look at it. What is one of your most memorable times? Now, young people must think that us older generation sit around thinking about back then, or reminiscing. We spend our whole time reminiscing. We do. Yes, we do. It is true. Yes, we do. We sit around and we think about the good old days. And for good reason. Times change right in front of your eyes. They change right before your very eyes. And looking back and comparing it to today, sometimes you'll find that life is better for you now than it was. Sometimes you'll find that you miss a lot of things. Sometimes you'll find that, wow, I kind of wish I had that when I was younger. So, yeah, we do a lot of reminiscing. Now, as far as the most memorable time, I don't have a single one. When I sit and reminisce, it's always about the good old funny times that I've had with family. And, that should be. And sometimes with school age friends, if we ever went somewhere, like me and my sister used to go to the park or something with some friends from school, and we had some good times. We went visit a graveyard and things like that. We had pretty good times then. Watched some music videos together, which MTV has changed dramatically since it first came out in '84. And those are things you look back on and the memories of some of the music videos. Because I have to say, I think it's because that's when they became really, really popular, was back in the '80s. And I think that's why we look back on them as the good old days. And wow, I miss those videos that we used to watch. And they used to have music video channels that MTV was the greatest thing ever. And now it's like, it's not like it used to be. What was one of your most embarrassing moments? You know what? I don't only answer this question. I ask them this question too. Well, anyway, it's like you can get some funny answers out of people, but I don't have one single embarrassing moment because I had many embarrassing moments. Most of those was because I am a klutz. Was born a klutz, and I will live forever as a klutz. I was so clumsy then. I'm not as clumsy as I used to be, but I was a clumsy little girl. I fell over everything. I tripped over everything. I don't know how many times I bumped my head, I bumped my knee, twisted my ankle. I waited till I was older to start twisting my ankle, so I'm breaking bones. But yeah, those are my embarrassing moments, because each and every time this happened to me, I wanted to hide. I did cry sometimes. Yes, of course I did. But I mostly wanted to hide. I wanted to leave where I was at the time because it was so embarrassing. Now, that was my last question. If you have any questions for me that the younger generation happens to ask you, you put them in the comments below, because I would really like to hear them, and maybe I can feature those questions in a future video podcast. And remember, you can catch those video podcasts. I'm hoping to do a weekly schedule, but being that I'm in school, my schedule might be a little sporadic. So the best way to find out if I am uploading, if you like this video, is to push on the subscribe button and the bell icon so you will be notified. And until next time, I want you guys all to be safe, stay safe, take care of yourselves. And until next time, keep that coffee hot and your pinkies up. You'll be seeing me. Hey, I got it right that time.